Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of UB on the Move. I am Michael Krassman, one of the co-founders of UrbanBound. UrbanBound, as a reminder, is relocation management software that helps healthcare organizations with the most important part of the hiring process, which is making sure that that talent that you've found, whether it be a physician, a nurse, an advanced practitioner, gets to the location where they need to be in a seamless and efficient manner. With me is my co-host, Jeff Ellman, the other co-founder, and I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Jeff Ellman, and today we're joined by Becky Kapsalis, the Associate Vice President of Talent Acquisition for UVM Health. I'm so excited to have Becky on today's show. I want to first talk about her personal life. Becky lives in Shelburne, Vermont, with her husband, Jeff, fantastic name, daughter Petra, who's 20, and Nico, son, who's 17, and then her Australian Shepherd, Mia, who hopefully will join today's podcast as well in the background. A little bit more about Becky. She's a certified human resource professional with more than 20 years of HR experience, 8 of which have been as the talent acquisition leader at UVM Medical Center. We are so excited to have her on today's show and can't wait to learn more. So Becky, I wanted to first off ask you a question around a little bit about yourself. So I just gave a quick intro of you, but if you can share with us the journey of how you got to where you are today and how you end up working within healthcare.
Sure. So thank you, Jeff. So I'm going to try to be concise because I could take up a whole hour just talking about my journey. So in short, I grew up in Massachusetts. I came to Vermont to go to college at UVM. And as I was finishing up my last year, I met a guy who was actually back at home in Vermont writing a business plan to start a business, a small business. In Breckenridge, Colorado. And I, at the time, had the choice of going to work at Fidelity Investments, which I had done an internship at the summer before, or to do some adventure. So I chose adventure and drove out to Colorado with him. And fast forward a number of years, ended up marrying him and running 2 bagel bakeries there. And so we were small business owners for 10 years. And I was, vice president ultimately of the Pica Bagel Bakeries. And we divided the work, and I spent most of my time in the HR space of our work. So we had 2 bakeries. We had a lot of staffing that we needed to do, and a lot of turnover that we dealt with, ultimately creating policies and handbooks and just sort of managing the day-to-day of having employees and managing the business. So I focused a lot on that, and that's what I really loved to do. And when we decided that we were ready to start a family, we decided we did not want to do that in a ski town, even though we loved it and still have great friends there. We decided we wanted to move back to Vermont to start our family. And that's where my husband had grown up. That's where his family was. My family was in Massachusetts. So we sold our business and had enough money to, without having jobs here, we were able to purchase a house in the town that we had hoped we would, which is where my husband had grown up. And we had no jobs. So we were kind of like, what are we good at? What do we do? And Jeff, my husband, did a lot of soul searching. I did a lot of soul searching, and I was like, human resources, like that's what I love. That's what I'm good at. And so at the time, and this was in 2000, like the internet existed, but people were still, writing their resumes on, I got the best like Crane's paper stock that I could, wrote my resume, wrote cover letters, sent them out to like all of the progressive companies that existed in Vermont at the time. Ben and Jerry's was one that, everybody was really interested in working for. So Ben and Jerry's, Jog Bra was another one. Jog Bra sort of started here. And Country Home Products was one of the companies that I had applied to. And so they took a chance on me. I got a job with them, actually a seasonal job working in recruiting. Country Home Products manufactures and distributes DR power equipment, which is mostly like um, outdoor mowers and stump grinders and chippers and all of that good stuff. So worked for them for a number of years, advanced with them a bit, and then ultimately decided I needed to sort of spread my wings. So I transitioned to HR in mental health here in Vermont. Also, grew my career there until ultimately a friend sort of tapped me on my shoulder and was like, hey, we need to start an HR department at my startup, which was Magic Hat Brewing Company here in Vermont. Would you want to start the HR department for us? So I did that. We grew quickly there too, created an organization called Independent Brewers United. And I advanced to the leader of HR there, and we were purchased by North American Breweries. The senior leadership team was let go. I was one of those people, and I needed to find another place to land, and was drawn to working at the hospital. The hospital, at UVM Medical Center, is like one of the largest employers in our area, and so for an HR professional, it's sort of like, the holy grail of working in HR because it was well resourced and had a large team. So that is, I tried to be concise, but that's how I landed where I am. And actually, at the time, there were two positions open. One was the manager of employee and labor relations. The other was manager of recruiting and staffing, and I kind of tossed my hat in the ring for both because I could do both, but landed the job of recruiting and staffing and have grown, and at this point I am now the AVP of talent acquisition for the UVM Health Network, which is 7 healthcare systems across northern New York and Vermont, 16,000 employees. Wow. And we centralized recruitment for the network just over this past year as part of a shared service.
Wonderful. It's quite the journey. You got bagels.
It is. And sorry.
You have bagels. Yeah. You have beer. You almost had ice cream at Ben and Jerry's.
Yeah, right.
Great journey.
Exactly.
I was going to say you're speaking right to me because I consider myself a bit of a bagel aficionado actually. So
okay.
More to discuss on that after this.
We were New York style boil and bake.
There you go. A little malt at the beginning. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Wow. Like I said, more to discuss on that point. But so you've obviously seen HR now you've been in and around the HR side of things for quite some time. What would you say, in your opinion, has been the biggest change that you've seen in HR over the course of your career? And maybe if you could speculate a little bit as to where you see it going over the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. So I started in HR before the internet existed. I mentioned 2000 when I was looking for a job, but prior to that, I graduated from college in 92 and operated HR for many years. And everything was paper driven, right? That's sort of like the main difference. There was really no automation. Everything was on paper forms. If you had a status change for somebody filled out a form and walked down the hall and put it either in a box or handed it. So HR has come a really long way since I have been in the field. And actually, I've now at this point, I've been in it for 30 years. So I've just seen a huge amount of change. Yep. I'd say, fast forward to where I am in my career now, we have an applicant tracking system, right? So we are on an HRIS called Workday, which many may be familiar with, and use that as our applicant tracking system. And that is huge for us, right? We have a bank of talent available to us at any given time. In that system, we can communicate in that system to hiring leaders and to candidates and all of that. I'd say one of the biggest changes that I see coming is that especially over the past 2 years, it's been really difficult to attract
Yeah.
talent, for all of us. A lot of people left the workforce during the pandemic. Many did not come back. And that was even more acute in hospitals and in healthcare
Yeah.
because people did not want to come back to working with potentially a population that could get them sick, and at the time it was really scary, it could get sick and potentially die.
And
In
Becky,
any
we had a
case, it's
guest, by
been
the way,
really,
real quick. We had a guest on our last podcast who shared that application volume was down 42% compared to
yep,
pre-COVID
absolutely.
across all positions.
Yep.
That's mind-boggling.
Absolutely. Yep. And we're coming back up again now, but like that really, we had to adjust a lot of things. That was something that we had not experienced I've always worked in places where people want to work, right? So when we owned our bagel bakeries, we were the cool bagel bakeries in town. People wanted to work there. We never had a hard time recruiting and staffing there. And then, same at brewing, working in the beer industry, brewing, people are begging for jobs, and hospital, again, the medical center at the time that I came into the field, being one of the largest employers and also with the most resources, the best benefits, people have always really wanted to work with us and for us. And we often said, the medical center is some place where you typically don't get your start. You kind of aspire to work at the medical center. And that was true when I came into my role. But we found within the past, 2 years, we were like, whoa, we need to change that paradigm because we're in a much different place. So now and in the future, we're focusing a lot more on the staff that we do have, for one thing. So investing a lot in learning and development, workforce development, enhancing our employee experience, really appreciating and understanding how important it is to keep the folks that we have, but also recognize that we really have a very limited workforce available to us in Vermont and then also in Northern New York, so that we also really need to invest in growing our own. So pipelining candidates. So we started just this year, actually, we are starting to build a workforce development department. And so building training programs and apprenticeship programs to actually entice young people within Vermont and Northern New York to be in healthcare, take a chance on some of our training programs, maybe even question whether you want to go to college, maybe just go and train with us and become a respiratory therapist or a med tech or what have you. So I'd say that a lot of focus on analytics in HR. I mean, that's kind of been increasing over the years, but I think it's especially important right now because we need to prove that the money we're investing is doing something.
What are some of those key analytics that you guys are looking at?
Yeah, so I am mostly entrenched in talent acquisition. So, and we also drink the David Zari's Kool-Aid. So I know that you have interviewed David, and so in the same way that I was an early adopter with Urban Bound, I also was a really early adopter working with David, and back when he started Lean Human Capital. So we keep a very comprehensive scorecard of just about any metric you could imagine for talent acquisition. So number of applicants that we're getting, time to fill, the number of candidates that are being routed to hiring leaders, the number of offers that are being extended to the number of offers that are being accepted, the time that it takes to source a candidate, you name it, you got it. We make sure that we follow, and all of the data points and fill our metrics as much as we can with their scorecard, which is very comprehensive.
Great.
So you talked about how competitive it is right now to attract, and it sounds like you're doing a great job focused on retaining talent compared to other healthcare systems that we've met with. Can you share with us some of the things that you're really doing to stand out from the competition when it comes to the workforce attraction piece?
Yeah. So much, well, a lot of focus is just on filling nursing positions across the healthcare space. No matter who you speak to, the one thing that keeps me up at night is, am I going to have clinical talent available to us to be able to fill the 2,000 open positions I have open every single day of the week and have had open? The positions change, but the volume hasn't changed much. So for the past 2 years, every day of the week, I've got about 2,000 open positions.
Wow.
A good portion of those are nurses, for sure. And other ones are respiratory therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, a lot of clinical, but also non-clinical. But anyway, to answer your question, so much of the competition for us for nursing talent over the past couple of years has been traveling agencies, right? So nurses have chosen to leave their jobs and sign on with agencies that will put them into travel assignments, and they've been able to entice them with money and benefits to do that, and lifestyle opportunities. So, for as uncreative or innovative as it might sound, we really have had to focus a lot on just financial incentives to get people to make the change from being a traveler to being a non-traveler. So our wages have been increased, offering pretty extreme sign-on bonuses. For some of our nursing positions, we're offering up to $20,000 sign-on bonus. Other incentives, so offering relocation, and offering housing stipends on top of relocation. So, up to 3 months of, a housing stipend of $3,000 a month. And then also just really working on enhancing our employer brand. What is our employer value proposition? Is a lot of it. And for then the non-clinical positions, we have been really innovative with reconsidering positions that once had to be in the office that now can be remote or can be working in a hybrid situation.
Yep.
Another thing that I think we've been really innovative with, and this was really like we almost had no choice, is that we have partnered with a local developer to build a housing development. So our first apartment building became ready for occupancy. I'm trying to remember. I feel like it was like maybe June 1st. We had our first folks in there, and that's a 60-unit building.
That's such a great idea.
And we've also broken ground on a second building that will be 120 units, and that also will include a child care center. And so because the vacancy rate around us is so low, it's like under 2%. That's the only way. I mean, we're really like the only way we're going to be able to relocate people is to have housing available to them. And so that has been really interesting, to all of a sudden be sort of landlords and the things that come with it. But it also has been really amazing to be able to offer that to our staff, from nutrition services, environmental services workers, all the way up through senior executives live in that building. Actually, the diversity of socioeconomic diversity in that building is really interesting. The other thing that we are doing is that we are providing housing assistance, financial assistance, to those that do not meet a certain earnings threshold. And so that that allows our environmental services workers and our LNAs to be living in the same apartment building as a senior executive, because we are able to offset some of the rent for them. Even with that being said, though, it's still very expensive for those entry level workers for sure. But anyway, that has been a huge advancement for us and a plus for talent acquisition for sure.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you're speaking to, I think why Urban Bound exists, for example. We've seen how important it is for companies, for healthcare organizations to cast a wide net to find the talent, because it's often not in their own backyard. And all of these types of incentives that you guys are doing are very, very, frankly, ahead of the curve, and, I think are going to help you guys a lot. Where do you sort of see that competitive landscape evolving over, let's just call it the next 5 years? Because obviously it's at a high level right now, but how do you see the next 5 years kind of rolling out with that, from that perspective?
Honestly, for where I sit, which is in Vermont, northern Vermont and northern New York, I don't see it evolving too much. I don't expect that our workforce is going to grow all that much within our state. The state of Vermont, I'm not sure of the exact statistic, but the proportion of people who are sort of age of retirement to those that are coming up into the workforce, they're out of proportion with one another. So again, going back, we need to be focusing on building our own. And a lot of the focus will be on that. How strong can we make our programs to allow young people to maybe skip college and, like pursue a technical interest in healthcare. I think that's going to be our biggest investment. I will say the state of Vermont in particular recognizes how important the lack of housing is, or, what a detriment that is for us. I mean, compound that by the fact that, and you've heard it in the news over the past, couple of months, huge areas of our geography have been flooded out. So, we had a housing crisis before. Now we have an even worse housing crisis. So I think the state is going to be investing a lot more money. I know actually a news report came out just yesterday. University of Vermont is investing like $100 million in student housing so that they can actually offset a lot of the burden that the city of Burlington has, and can provide more housing. So it's all to say the next 5 years, I see a lot of focus, at least for us, on building our workforce, maintaining the workforce that we have, focus on employee experience, employee engagement, continue to grow our diversity and inclusion, focus on that. Just making the UVM Health Network a place where really people want to and aspire to work for, from anywhere across the country, I guess, is what I see the focus being over the next 5 years.
By the way, I love that Mia just joined the podcast for a split second. I saw Mia back there.
She's my buddy. She's my shadow.
There's nothing better than having a dog at home, especially during these days where everyone's working from home. So I'm curious, what advice you would give to other HR leaders that are going through the same challenges that you're experiencing, which is it's really hard to find talent in your own backyard. They're starting to come around and realize that how they're relocating talent today just by giving money, whether it's a lump sum or it's a reimbursement upon their first payroll. But what advice would you give to someone who's looking to explore a better way to attract and relocate talent to their organization?
Yeah. So it used to be, and actually how I learned about Urban Bound was I was looking for a better solution than what we had in place. So again, going back to the whole notion of things not being automated, papers being passed around, administrative assistants doing administrative type work, but like we weren't providing anything over and above just sort of like processing receipts and reimbursements. I realized that, again, going back to employee experience and candidate experience, we needed something more than just giving a lump sum amount or saying that there's an allowance and then having people submit their receipts to us and then us cutting them a check and really hands off. I mean, again, I think we had a Word document that was like, here are some van lines you might consider. And if you want to take a tour of the area for $450, you can do that through this and quite frankly, I honestly, one of the things that I was known for doing back in the day is I would actually like block off a couple of hours from my day, especially if we had an executive coming to town, where I would give them a tour of the area, talk about schools, talk about like I was that person, and that was not like really my job, nor was it my forte. So in any case, I think offering a white glove treatment to your candidates and your new hires is extremely important because the competition is fierce, right? So if people feel like we are treating them well from the get-go and they're getting the attention that they need, the support that they need, from the time that we are making an offer, then I think they're more inclined to feel good about the role that they're coming into, but also spreading the good word about coming to work for us. So we continue to get great feedback on the use of Urban Bound. One of the things that I love about it also is that because it's an online platform, people can go in, it can be midnight and they can get into the platform and, do some research on area schools.
Yes.
Or their partner can go into the platform and submit their receipts, at 2 a.m. if they need to, what have you. And so it's offering that flexibility for people and for their partners, that might be helping with a search. So it's all part, as I went back to saying, what are we doing? So much of what we're doing is just providing some perks, whether it's in the way of money or making a transition easier or, whatever we can do to make sure that people are happy about coming to work for us and happy about their experience. We are interested in exploring and adopting it.
That's great. You're starting to touch a little bit about on that experience of, onboarding them. We read a recent Gallup poll. It said 82% of organizations say that the onboarding process is critical to employee satisfaction and retention, but only 12% of those same respondents say that they do a good job of it. I want to get a sense from you is why do you think most organizations feel that way, feel that they're failing in this regard, and any ideas that you have for how that can be improved to really elevate the likelihood that it's a successful onboarding and that retention ultimately is lengthened?
Well, I'll say one of the things that I am most proud of in sort of my recent career and in talent acquisition is the transition we made to the creation of a center of excellence for talent acquisition and centralizing recruitment. So, and centralizing onboarding. So, on the TA team, we have individuals. Well, I have somebody who specifically focuses on executive recruitment. I have somebody who is in the position of data and metrics and data analytics and focuses on our social presence also. I have a manager who manages an amazing onboarding team. And she has a lead in that onboarding team role that is amazing. And so you ask specifically about onboarding, but I will say that's really our entry level to my team. And we hire for attitude and aptitude. We do not take that role lightly. So anybody coming into that role, we are sure that they have customer service top of mind. They are positive with their attitudes. Most people coming into that role know that it's going to kind of be a stepping stone for them into other areas of HR. So they are very much interested in being very successful in that role so that they can grow. And so I am confident with the leadership of my manager of that team and the lead of that team and the people that they're hiring onto that team, that people are getting just an amazing experience. So the other thing that I'll say is, with that center of excellence, we've got positions. I have people that specifically focus on sourcing. I have people that focus on talent acquisition or recruitment, the recruiters. And then I have positions that are called talent acquisition coordinators, and they coordinate a lot of the administrative, they work on the administrative needs, like, helping to deploy the Urban Bound invitation, or launching skill surveys, or doing pre-screening and all of that. So all of this goes back to sort of like wanting to be the most lean and efficient and effective that we can be. And I feel confident that my team is set up that way. And again, I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of, that, we set it up that way. We drink the lean Kool-Aid, and follow workflows closely, set up service level agreements with hiring leaders so that they fully understand what they're responsible for.
So you have internal
I
SLAs
digress.
you have internal SLAs between departments, holding them
We
accountable.
do. So
That's
as
great.
soon as a talent acquisition partner, steps into a role to support a department, or if there is a new leader, they are meeting with them and setting up a service level agreement to say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do. Here's the time frame that we're going to do this within. Because one of the things that I think we need to focus on, in order to succeed, quite frankly, and to stand out amongst the competition, is really to shorten that period that it takes to source a candidate. And so, I think industry average is like it takes like 55 days to source one candidate, right? If we can cut that amount down, I think it will significantly improve our time to fill on roles. We will be more efficient. We will have a leading edge on the competition. But so much has to happen to shorten that length of time that it takes to source a candidate, and it's multifaceted. It's the employer brand. It's trying different sourcing techniques. It's another thing that I didn't mention, but is on my mind for what's happening in the next 5 years, is AI. Like, what can we do? How can we tap into and use AI to help speed some of this up, right? Without maybe, without the risk of losing candidates in the process. Like, that's my biggest fear of it, I guess, is trusting that AI would be able to pick up on attitude and aptitude, like how many people would we lose? So I digress a bit, but I hope I answered your question.
You did. And it sounds like you're well on your way. When I was reading more about you and your recent advancement within the healthcare organization, the goal of this 20% improvement in time, cost, and quality metrics, it sounds like you're well on your way to accomplishing that goal based on a lot of things that you shared today. We want to end with one last question. It's not really tied to you being the HR thought leader, but more something that we like to hear from all of our guests. So can you share with everyone who's listening what purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months?
Okay. So this is not where it's not something that I purchased in work, but I think it impacts my work and I think it's impacted my life. So, and it's two things actually. Over the past 6 months, I have invested in a good sleeping mask. And I have found one on Amazon. I think it's called like 40 blinks or
40
something.
blinks. I like
Um,
that.
yep. And and to go with that are earplugs. So I will say those two things, and it's actually for the combination of the two, it's actually under probably 15
Oh, wow.
bucks, and it has impacted my life so drastically in that it has provided. I still have some nights of interrupted sleep, but for the most part, it has greatly impacted the quality of my sleep.
That's great. You're you're speaking to me on bagels and on sleep because I'm a big sleep advocate also. And if I need enough bagels, then I have to take a nap. So it all works together.
Yes, exactly. The carb overload. Yes.
Well, I want to thank you, Becky, for joining us today. It was so nice to speak with you. We look forward to our next UB on the Move coming soon. So be on the lookout for that. But thanks again to our guest, Becky Kapsalis, for joining us. And from myself and Jeff Ellman, we will see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me.
Thank you.